Hello there. Hello there. Hope you're doing great, having a fantastic week, all set for a beautiful day and an amazing weekend. I'm glad to be here live with you today. Today, I am going to be answering your questions. So many weeks, I have a specific topic I'm talking about today. I'm just going to answer whatever comes up as well as I can. I am back to two platforms. I'm live on Instagram. Hello there, as well as on YouTube. And hopefully, I'll be able to manage questions on both. Let's see, why are we not seeing? Okay, got it. Well, you know what? Because the YouTube is brand new, probably going to have much more going on here on Instagram. So I'll be focused on questions there. Glad to see you. If you're joining me now, welcome. Hope you're having a fantastic day, week, and all set for a beautiful weekend. Glad to be here with you. All right, there's a comment. I may have to get my phone just a tiny bit closer. Let's see here. It's the angle. Hope you're doing great. Would you say it's okay to fast for one day a week as regular healthy practice, or will it consume too much muscle with a 36 to 40 hour break week? Okay, I'm guessing what you mean there is, because I'm not completely clear, is that there'll be a 36 to 40 hour break between meals. Here's the thing about this, right? It's a common question. Is it valuable to take a day off from eating every week? Should I fast one day a week? Now, let me start by saying that, and I think some of you already know this. Some of you may be brand new and do not know much about me, but I did that for 2.5 years, a long time ago. I didn't eat on Sundays for quite a long time. I would have my last meal on Saturday night. I was often with friends, a date, my girlfriend, depending on what during that time, what it was. And then I would have my first meal again. I would break my fast around noon on Monday. So I was going from 6 p.m. Saturday, 6, 7 p.m. Saturday, all the way until Monday. Was it a good thing? Well, I think what I can say is that initially, I definitely noticed some benefits to doing that. And I think you probably will too. Will it continue to be so beneficial for you? Maybe not. Maybe not. Why not? Remember that a fast of that length is a very superficial thing. Now, there are lots of people out there, millions of people now who use intermittent fasting, who would tell you it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, which of course, as if you really know, it's not really saying much, right? To be comparing it to sliced bread. But the point is, a lot of people think it's an amazing practice because they feel much better when they do that. I've been eating this way now for over 30 years, 31, almost 32 years now, okay, where I don't eat in the morning. It happens every once in a while. I'll eat something in the morning, but I have 365 days a year. I probably eat something in the morning 2 or 3 times a year. Most of the time, my first meal, it doesn't happen until somewhere around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Again, it could be a little bit earlier. Sometimes it's later, but typically it's going to be around 2 o'clock. I don't notice anything in particular by doing that. It's not like I'm like, oh my God, I feel incredible today because I didn't eat anything yet and it's already 2 o'clock. It doesn't happen that way. It happens that way for people who are still making relatively poor choices. Okay, the more mediocre your choices are, the more benefit you're going to see from having this kind of a break between meals. Now, to me, it makes sense. I keep doing this for a couple of reasons. First of all, I'm not hungry in the morning. Okay, forcing your body to eat when it doesn't want food, that's not helpful. You're just creating work, a lot of work. Remember, nothing takes more energy than processing food through the body normally. So you're forcing your body to do all this work when there's no benefit. And how do I know there's no benefit to me to eating? Well, if my body needed calories or nutrients, what would happen? I would feel hungry, but I don't. I don't experience any hunger until sometime, mid to late afternoon. That's when I have my first meal. Okay, I don't want to force my body to process food when it clearly doesn't need food. And I say, again, clearly doesn't need it because if I needed it, I would get that message from the body. That's what hunger is. Hunger is a message from your body that it needs calories or nutrients. So I'm not getting that message. That to me is very clear, doesn't need food. I'm not eating. Okay. But again, we don't want to eat anytime we don't need food. If you can get by with 2 meals a day, which I believe is what works best for most people, eating twice a day. If you eat calorically dense food, okay, then you might be able to get everything you need with 1 meal a day. But because I live primarily when I'm home in Costa Rica, I'm not now. You can see I'm sitting by a fireplace. I'm in Utah. There's snow on the ground. Actually, it's snowing right now. I'm up here in the mountains, pretty high, 9,000 feet above sea level. When I am at home, I'm living almost exclusively on watermelons and papayas, occasional pineapples, mangoes, but very high water content foods. They're not very calorically dense. And so I find that if I try to eat once a day, I have to stuff myself to do it. I feel better eating twice a day within about a 4 to 6 hour window most of the time. Now, again, there may be some variation. It's not a hard and fast rule. I'm not saying to you it has to be like this. For me, it works best when I don't eat until I'm hungry, usually around 2 o'clock. And then I'll eat my second meal, usually around 6, maybe as late as 7 sometimes. Okay, so that works best. Now, if I were to continue skipping that day and having, the 40 or so hours between meals, or even more perhaps, I don't know that that would be so beneficial for me. Why not? Well, it's a very superficial cleanse. Okay, like intermittent fasting, it's just slightly longer. Instead of going 16 hours, you go one more night and then you eat again. But to me, there's not much return. I mean, there's not a tremendous loss of muscle, but there's a loss of muscle. You're definitely getting into muscle loss once you get past 16 to 20 hours into the process. It's going to vary for everybody, but 16 to 20 hours in, most people are going to start seeing some loss of muscle. And to me, there's very little benefit to doing that. So I'll skip a day of eating when I am too busy to eat, which happens, or if I just I'm not hungry. Maybe I haven't really had enough sleep for a few nights. That has happened. Sometimes when traveling, depending on conditions, it could be various things. My body might not really want food, okay, under those circumstances. So if I'm not hungry, what do? Well, I'll not eat. That's going to be the best thing to do in that circumstance. But for me, I gave up fasting 1 day a week when I realized, okay, I'm getting very little benefit from this anymore. Initially, yeah, but it's superficial. So once you get the superficial cleansing done, guess what? You're not going to see that much benefit. Okay. Again, you look at studies and the benefits that they find. These are people who are still, maybe they're eating better than the average person, but they're still a long way from what's optimal. Okay. I think that's really the key. I hope that helps. I've got another comment or question here. Hi, Loren. How long would you fast for if you had a few small lipoma cysts to eliminate them? Thanks. I would recommend fasting for lipomas or with lipomas for 21 days or more. Now, again, you obviously have been around before. Some of you have and some of you haven't. What I would always say is we typically want to do no more than 5 to 7 days without having experienced guidance. This, unless you already have quite a bit of experience, it's almost always a mistake to do more than 5 to 7 days without having experienced guidance. But 21 days for most people is going to do a tremendous job on eliminating those lipomas. Now, lipomas, for anyone not familiar, it's a fatty lump. It's a deposit of hard fatty material. Generally not dangerous, nothing to worry about, but not attractive, may not feel very comfortable, depending on where it is. And fasting will usually allow your body to get rid of it. It depends, of course, on what your body's priorities are. It may not be because it's usually benign, it may not be the most important thing for your body to focus on. Okay, but I would normally recommend 21 days with lipomas. I'll mention now, and I may mention this again later if I have a chance or remember to, but I've mentioned this before, and it hasn't happened yet only because there have been various factors I've had to consider, but our rates will be going up very soon now, probably within about a week or two. And so if you would like to have supervision, if you're ready to take your health to the highest level possible, by the way, I guarantee this in writing. if you're coachable and you fast long enough and you're willing to take direction, you will take your health to a much higher level than you've experienced in a long time. That never fails for people that fast with me, let's say 21 days or more, as long as they're doing what they need to. If you're not coachable, you're not going to get the results. And frankly, I'd just as soon not work with you. So if you know you're not really coachable, then please find somebody else to help you. All right. I hope that helps. Peter says, hi, Loren. I've sent an email to you with a question. Okay. I have been super busy, back-to-back calls almost every hour, and I will get to that. I promise you, Peter. I'll get something back to you, but probably later today I'll have a chance to do that. All right, let's see. Got some other folks here. Jasmine, hello there. Nice to see you. Andreas, hey, how are you doing, man? Good to see you. Hope all's well with you up there near the North Pole. Andreas is in northern Sweden. Pretty far up there, if I remember correctly. Charles, good to see you here. Dean, nice to see you. Hope you guys are doing well. Okay, Ploto Jed, I'm not sure if I'm sure if I'm saying that right. I am Jadel Emmanuel. Nice to see you here. Hello, Star. How are you doing? I hope all's well in Southern California. All right, Hannah is in the house. And lots more folks. I won't mention everybody. Hi, Loren. Would you be at Tanglewood anytime soon? I don't know. I certainly hope so. I would rather be at Tanglewood than in the US any day. It's not something I have control over right now. Some of you are aware of this, but Tanglewood will turn 29 in March. Middle of March, will be 29 years old. In 29 years, I have never taken a salary from Tanglewood. I am where I am now. I'm at the home, second home of a client who said, no one uses it this time of year, you're welcome to stay there. And that's what I've been doing since I've been in the US, because I don't have any money to speak of. The income that Tanglewood generates goes to pay the bills there. We have 22 or 23 employees, including a doctor, nurse, a physician's assistant. We pay a lot of taxes there, mortgages, insurance, maintenance on 37 acres and all the buildings we have is expensive. And so I've never taken anything personally. Everything else coming in has been invested in the Las Cascadas project, which is now on hold. But what's happened is I'm in the US because the IRS, Internal Revenue Service, says that I owe them money even though I've had no salary. They now say that 6 years now, if you own a foreign corporation, the net income of the corporation is taxable as your personal income, which is, ridiculous. But there is no net income. The problem is that they want me to file to prove that. And that would be, I have to use a tax attorney, would be very expensive. So for the time being, I'm here until I can officially extricate myself from the system. I will do that. Someone recently accused me of tax evasion. I've never evaded taxes. I don't take an income. I don't have a personal income. I live in paradise, very simply. I don't need much. The company houses and feeds me, but I'm here. In the meantime, just so you know, there's a doctor on site. She's there 6 days a week. I see you 6 days a week as well. There's one day she's off and it's just me. One day I'm off and it's just her. But I'm with you 6 days a week, even though I'm not there. Okay. I still see everybody. I'm still available 24/7 to my staff. Tanglewood is still the best place that you can go. By the way, there's now another one of my ex-clients who is calling himself a fasting supervisor. This is someone who's fasted once and is absolutely unqualified to be guiding anyone through the process. There's a lot of people like that. Some of you know this. Before I ever fasted the first client, I had already fasted like 35, 36 times, fairly long fasts. And I had 2 years of training by people who were certified to supervise fast, who worked on staff with me. Two practitioners who were certified, worked hand in hand with me. And they did a 3-month internship to get certified. I did a 24-month internship. to get certified. Okay, there are probably half a dozen of my clients who are out there calling themselves fasting supervisors. One I can think of has fasted 3 times. That doesn't qualify anyone to supervise fasts. Most of them have fasted, once, maybe twice. That's it. They're definitely not qualified. It's way more complex than most people are going to be able to understand well after doing this a couple times. All right, there's a question here. I'm sorry, I have to keep changing the angle of my phone. It's weird to look right. It's down a little bit, but to read the comments, I have to tilt it up a little bit, or the angle doesn't work. Can you get a direct flight from the UK to Costa Rica, or would I have to get 2 flights? There are some direct flights from London to Costa Rica, generally to San Jose. There might be flights to Liberia, which is the closer airport, but most people come into San Jose. And if not, there were flights from London. I'm not sure about now. We've had a lot of people come from the UK. If not, there are direct flights from Madrid, from big city in Germany. There's a few places. There's direct flights from Switzerland as well. There's quite a few flights to Costa Rica from throughout Europe, and yes, I'm pretty sure from London as well. All right, Charles says, is it okay to eat organic lettuce from Whole Foods if the farmer's market only has it available during the spring, summer, and early fall? Yeah, it is okay. Obviously, Charles, and everybody, with everything, we want to be eating it as fresh as possible. And the one of the issues with Whole Foods is they have a distribution system. It's a giant company now. It's grown tremendously, and everything winds up going through their warehouses, and it takes time from the farm to the shelf. So it will have lost some vitality. This is why I've always recommended you want to buy as much as you can. I mean, grow what you can yourself. For most of us, if you're in North America or Europe, you're probably not going to be growing so much this time of year, right? Unless you're very far south. If you're in Florida, if you're in Southern California, you might still be able to grow some things in South Texas, perhaps in Europe, in Spain, Portugal, Italy, Greece. You can grow things all year long. You can probably grow lettuce most of the year. So Whole Foods, I'm currently in Utah. I am eating lettuce from Whole Foods and from another organic market not too far from here. Is it ideal? Well, in the summertime, I'd be buying from farmers markets directly from the grower because they picked it yesterday, to bring to the market today. That's going to be the best you can do. When that's not an option, yeah, you're still better off getting from someplace like Whole Foods. It's still going to be pretty good quality. Perhaps not the best quality, but still pretty good. Okay. Other questions, anyone? By the way, again, most of you probably know this. You may have noticed that I have become far more active on social media over the last 4 weeks. I think this is the end of the 4th week, if I'm not mistaken, or there could be 5th because I've lost track. But posting now 6 days a week on Facebook and YouTube, on the new YouTube channel. Now, by the way, most of you are probably aware, if you've been around, that I had a YouTube channel for about 10 years. We had millions of views, more than 1,000 videos. I'm not sure exactly what to say here. Let me just say that, you've probably heard hurt people. Messed up people do messed up things. There are people who are emotionally not okay. They're mentally not really right. And somebody decided it would be a good idea to hack all of my channels. And so someone who had a personal vendetta, someone who was upset with me because I fired them. They weren't doing their job. I know who it is. We're working on proof. And when we get the proof, there'll be some legal ramifications. These are sick people who deserve to be locked up, probably, certainly punished for what they've done. But that I no longer, the channel's still there, but I no longer have access to posting on it. And so we have a brand new YouTube channel, which I'm now live on. Hello there. I see we have a viewer with us. I think there's 100 or 101 subscribers. We had 67,000 on the other channel. And what I'm trying to do now is to remember to let people know that this channel exists. Some people are going to prefer YouTube. I will be doing more longer form content coming up soon. So far, there's today and last week's live, and but there will be more coming soon when I have more time to make videos. What I was going to say about that is I am posting content, which for some of you, some of it may be a little bit basic, right? I'm doing a lot of short videos, 1-minute videos, to let people know that they can make improvements to their health by making better choices. The choices I'm talking about aren't always optimal. I've got a video that'll be coming out soon about problems with oatmeal. I don't recommend eating oatmeal, but there are a lot of people that eat it and think it's good for you. And I need people to understand there's some real issues there that they need to be aware of. If they're going to eat oatmeal, here's what you want to do, and here's what you want to look for. That's just an example. Hopefully, most of you will still find this content or much of it valuable. But yeah, some of it, I'm talking about some things that may be still slight compromises, because what I'm trying to do is get more people, if I can get them interested in what we're doing, then they can see what really is optimal. And that's the idea. Okay, I hope that's clear. All right, looks like we have a question or comment here. Ryder says, do you rinse and wash the fruit you buy from Whole Foods? I'm incredibly lazy, Ryder. Honestly, I normally don't. It's probably not a bad idea. I mean, I'm only buying organic. And usually I don't bother. My girlfriend thinks I'm crazy. She washes everything. It's probably not a bad idea. You don't know how it's been handled, etc. I'm not really too concerned about it, but especially if your system is very sensitive, if you're really working on taking your health to an amazing level, I mean, you might be less sensitive as you're doing that, but it's also going to be more important that you're not adding to the burden, right? So if you're taking anything in that doesn't really belong there, you probably would be better off giving it at least a quick rinse before you eat it. I don't normally bother with that. All right. Justin, hello there. Good to see you. All right. So again, if there's any other questions, I'm happy to take them. I have 35 minutes. I've got plenty of time here with you. And again, I'm not, oftentimes I'm not answering questions. I think last week, I don't know if I got to any questions. I don't remember now, but if I did, it was very few because I was basically speaking the whole time. There will be those times where I've got a subject and I've got a lot I want to share with you. And so I'm going to be talking the whole time. In fact, that's going to be more often the case, perhaps. Maybe I'll try to alternate. I was going to say when we're open. Right now, we're in one of our breaks. We reopen 2 weeks from tomorrow. When we are open, I've got a whole group sitting there with me. But maybe I'll set Saturdays aside at least every other week to just answer questions, because I do want to take these times where I can answer your questions as well. I think when I'm sharing information, it's stuff that I believe is valuable. I'm hoping you agree with me. Find it interesting and useful to you. That's the whole point. But I know that there are times too where you have questions. People asked questions last week I never got to, quite a few of them. So that's why I thought, okay, today I'm just going to answer your questions, unless you don't have any, in which case you're going to make me figure out something to tell you. All right, but if you have questions, very happy to answer them. I can tell you, I've mentioned this before. Again, we never know exactly what will happen, but we've got things in process. The goal, the plan, is to have a second location. It's probably still 3 years away or so, but there would be a second location in Southern Europe. And then eventually, assuming all is going well, a third location, probably another 2 or 3 years out from there. So let's say 5 to 6 years from now, we could be somewhere in Southeast Asia. And the objective, our clients have come from over 150 countries so far. For some people, I mean, a lot of people are happy to come to Costa Rica, and they don't really care that it's a bit of a trek. But it does make the process, it makes the whole thing less viable for some people. If you're coming from Australia and it's going to cost you $1,500 just to get to us, that's on top of what it costs to be there. If you're coming from the US, it's only a few $100s to get to us. It's much easier. And so the idea is to make it possible for people to stay within their region of the world and still get exactly the same benefits. And this is, one of the things, again, I would much rather be in Costa Rica, and I would be if I could be right now. But the truth is, not being there is forcing my team and I to figure out how to operate without my being there. Because when I'm there, it started out being the Loren show, and now it's me with like 20 some extras when I'm there. Everything still comes to me. Everyone's got, my staff have questions for me. It's not really a very efficient way to operate. What I need to do is create a team that can operate the center without my total input, without me being there all the time. And so we're sort of forced into that now. And it's been a good thing. It's been a positive thing. There's always a silver lining, right? No matter how difficult or challenging something may seem, there's always some potential benefit from it as well. What's your opinion on the raw primal diet popularized by Agnes van der Planets? Well, I think it's completely insane. And I have done a couple of posts, not specifically talking about Agnes or his particular way of looking at this diet, but just from the standpoint that our digestive systems are completely different from those of animals that eat meat. And I talked about this just, I think, 2 weeks ago, maybe something like that. I don't think that was last week, but I don't remember now. But there are huge differences, and it's misstated. The people out there that are pushing these carnivore and keto type diets are misstating things. Some of them don't know better, right? They're just repeating what they've heard or read somewhere. And some of them probably do know better and are purposely misstating things to try to push their agenda, to try to get people to believe what they want them to believe. But you want to be really clear about this. I've just lost my YouTube here. I think I'm still on there. It's just that something, there we go. For instance, someone asked me yesterday, or said to me on a comment somewhere, I forget if it was Instagram or Facebook, for the second time. He said this and I responded to it like 4 or 5 days ago. He said, yeah, but why then do we have the exact same stomach acid as carnivores? Well, we don't actually. Human stomach acid tends to be, it's in a range, but the average is about pH 2.5, where carnivores' stomach acid tends to be pH 1.5 on average. That is 10 times more acidic. And that's not it. So first of all, not similar, 10 times stronger is a big difference, but it's actually much, much more of a difference than that. Because when we're talking about acid, we have to look not just at the pH of the acid, we have to look at the concentration of the solution. Okay, this is measured in molarity. Okay, and the stomach acid in a carnivore stomach on average is 10 times more concentrated than the stomach of a human being. So we are meant to eat things that we can chew up and easily digest. We don't need a lot of acid. Stomach acid is specifically for protein digestion. Okay, the reason, first of all, if we want to know how strong it is, we have to take the difference in pH, right? Again, it's 10 times more acidic. That's the way the pH chart works. I don't know if you're aware of this, but pH 6 is 10 times more acidic than pH 7. And pH 5 is 10 times more acidic than pH 6, which means 100 times more acidic than pH 7. So when we go from 2.5 to ours to 1.5 theirs is 10 times more acidic. But it's also 10 times more concentrated, which means it's 100 times more powerful in the stomach of a carnivore than it is in the stomach of a human being. Okay, and there's literally dozens and dozens of other differences, which make it absolutely clear that we are completely, distinctly different. Now, Agnes died. He fell off a balcony and died. And so, we don't know. He was only, I think in his 40s, maybe he was 50. I don't remember now. I don't think he looked particularly healthy, but we don't know how long he would have lived. We do know that most of the meat-based health gurus, those people out there saying now you should eat a keto diet or carnivore diet, historically, few of those people have reached 70, let alone 80. Most people now live to about 80. Very few of these people live to 70. Okay, there's no reason to believe that we're meant to eat a meat-based diet. It's ridiculous, completely absurd. Okay, makes no sense whatsoever, in my opinion. All right, Dean says, is there a risk that the longer the fast, one's metabolism post-fast might be permanently negatively affected? Yeah, it's a great question, Dean. This is something that is so completely misunderstood and, again, misstated. I don't know if it's misinformation, which means people don't know better, or disinformation, which means they don't want you to know the truth about this. But most people don't understand metabolism at all. And you want to be clear about this. First of all, you have to know what your goals are. What is it you want? Okay. Do you want to be able to eat everything in sight without gaining weight? Because if you want that, you want a fast metabolism. Okay. That fast metabolism means, technically what it means is you need, let's say you can double your metabolism. It means you would need twice as much energy, food, calories, in order to do the same amount of work that you'd needed before. That's called being half as efficient. Okay. Now, the more you work your digestive tract, the faster you age and die. So the only thing that longevity experts all agree on is that we don't want to eat any more than necessary. Okay. Eating more than we need to, not a good thing. It doesn't help us in any way. We just die faster, right? The only benefit having a faster metabolism is that you will be able to eat more without gaining weight. I mean, you'll need more food, but the more you work your digestive tract, the faster you age and die. So what fasting properly does is, well, in fact, it's a fascinating thing. Our bodies are just so incredibly intelligent. When I fast someone who's morbidly obese, and I see these people regularly, just had a gentleman with me for the third time, came in at about 350 pounds. I've got another guy coming next week who is over 300 pounds. These people maintain a fast metabolism. Why? Because the body wants to unburden, wants to get rid of as much weight as possible. So if you have no food coming in, your metabolism stays high. What happens? You lose weight faster. People who are very lean, metabolism slows down, so they don't lose their limited reserves any faster than necessary. When people start eating, with a much more efficient, the incredibly intelligent, but much more clean, efficient, and hydrated body does, is it creates the perfect metabolism for your body. I've never seen anybody whose metabolism was wrecked from fasting. I had one guy say to me, well, how come I fasted a couple times and on my own, and when I fast, I take all this weight off, then I put all the weight back on? Well, I don't know what you did because you didn't do it with me, but I guarantee you didn't do it correctly. Okay, it does not happen when someone does what they need to do. You lose the excess weight, you keep it off if you stick with an intelligent program. A lot of people, most people perhaps, don't do that on their own, unfortunately. Okay, I hope that helps, Dean. By the way, I'm not seeing, it could just be because there's no comments yet. There's only a few people here on YouTube. But if you've got questions for me, you can post them here in the chat window on YouTube, and I'll do my best to answer them in the 25 minutes or so, 23 minutes we have left. Theo Sundell says, have you heard about Mike Menser and high-intensity training, doing one set of exercise and training strength 1 to 2 times per week, I guess you mean per week, and getting better results and training more frequently? No, I've never heard of this person, but I can tell you that if you want to know what bodybuilders and champion weightlifters do, is they work out less frequently. Okay, you want to work out super hard, you want to completely break down muscle mass, and then you go as you go as hard as you can, and then you give your body enough time. Remember, we don't build muscle while we're working out. Okay, we break down muscle while we're working out, and we build strength as the body is resting afterward. Okay, that's when the rebuilding happens. So a lot of people don't give themselves enough time to rest. Now, if what you want to do is get as big and strong as possible, then you want to give yourself more time, right? So you might work upper body once a week, lower body once a week. Now, I mean, I think you want to be active all the time, regularly. I'm not particularly concerned about putting on more size or mass. I don't need that. It doesn't do anything for me. I understand why people do that. I had a young I knew a young guy many years ago. He was in his 20s, and he worked out all the time. I said, "Why are you constantly working out?" He said, "To get girls." Okay, I understand that, guys. Guys, I understand, and ladies, I understand if you two might want to be as attractive as possible, whatever you think that is to the opposite sex or to the same, whatever you're attracted to, whoever that is. I understand that. I'm not too concerned about that. I've always just assumed that if I'm as healthy as possible, I will attract, a partner who sees that, right? Because what's more attractive than vibrant health? I have an incredible girlfriend. I'm not too concerned about it. I mean, I stay healthy and I work out because I want to feel good and I want my body to work well. But I'm not concerned about size or mass. And so I work out every day. What I'm doing isn't super intense for me. It's what I can do. Um, and it just keeps my body working very well. As if I had a physical job or needed to go out into nature and do a lot of physical work, like climbing trees to get food. I don't need to do that most of the time. But if I did, I'd be working those muscles. Well, I don't do that. So I work them, by doing push-ups and other exercises. But yes, if the goal is to grow as much as you can, size and mass, then yep, you want to work out less frequently. There's no question about that. All right. Okay. Oops. Let's see here. I don't understand sometimes why that little pop-up thing happens when I'm trying to say hello to people. Ryder says, great explanation, Loren. When you eat your meals, do you eat until fully satiated and full, or do you stop prior to that when you could still eat more? Yeah, I think what you want to do. Thank you, Ryder, first of all, for the compliment. I appreciate that. I'm always doing my very best to keep things clear and concise and understandable to anyone. I think that's maybe one of my strengths, is that I can make things easy for people to understand. Sometimes when they want to, people don't want to understand. They certainly don't understand, no matter how simple it is. I think I'm going to say, ideally, we never eat until we're full. We always stop when we have room. Okay. I want to feel satisfied, satiated, but not full. They're two different things. The Okinawans, who for years were considered the longest lived population, not true anymore. The Japanese, Okinawa is an island off the coast of Japan, and the Japanese eat, I think, 3/4 or 2/3 as much as the average Westerner. I think it's 2/3. And the Okinawans would eat roughly 3/4 as much as the Japanese. And they would say you want to stop when you're 75% full. Okay, if I remember correctly, I think that's how it went. I always forget which one's which, the 2/3 and the 75%. But they're eating, the Okinawans were living much longer than most people and eating about half as much as most Westerners. Okay, now it's changed. They're no longer considered to be so healthy, so long-lived, because diets, unfortunately, have changed. They've started to incorporate more processed foods and moved away from their historical, conventional cultural diet, I should say. Okay. Jaldell says, how do you handle the sensitivity that comes with eating a raw vegan way? The sensitivity. Well, I guess I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to, because, I think what's true is that we become physically more sensitive, certainly. And how I handle that is I keep eating the same way. As long as I make excellent choices, that sensitivity is not a problem. It's a problem when I decide I want to eat something that's not on the program, right? Now my body's going to react to it much more than it would if my body was like typically inefficient, dehydrated, and toxic the way most people are. Their body, imagine the average person can go eat McDonald's and feel fine. Okay. Anybody whose body's pretty clean isn't going to respond very well to McDonald's. They're not going to feel very good. So if you're talking about that sensitivity, then the way I handle it is I do my very best to keep my diet as it should be, high quality, organic, mono fruit meals most of the time. It's mostly mono, simple green salads, mostly very simple, uncomplicated meals. There are those occasional exceptions. I was just reviewing a short reel that'll go up soon that my girlfriend shot of us at a raw vegan restaurant. I mean, it's just a short clip, but you can see I'm eating some sushi and then there's a dessert. It's all raw vegan. It's something I wouldn't want to do very often. As long as I keep it clean, the sensitivity is not a problem. Okay. Again, we become sensitive to things that we shouldn't be eating, which of course is perfect. I mean, what we want our intelligent body to be telling us, hey, that doesn't belong here. And that's what happens when we are eating. Ideally, the body gets sensitive, even more so with fasting. Getting the body clean and hydrated becomes even more sensitive that way. Now, there's other types of sensitivity. As people are cleansing, they become much more sensitive to temperature. So, for instance, to cold. People lose their body fat as the body is detoxifying, and there's all the plaque, which is now floating around in the bloodstream. Blood becomes thicker, and circulation gets worse to your fingers and toes and nose and ears, and these places where you have the smallest arterioles. And people may feel colder temporarily. Long term, we actually become less sensitive because the body becomes so efficient when we're fully hydrated. We have all the garbage out of the arteries. It's able to manage a variety of temperatures with relative ease. And then there is the potential emotional sensitivity, which tends to increase as people are detoxifying. Okay, and we're starting to experience all these suppressed emotions. That can be challenging for many people. We get to a point where we feel much more emotionally balanced and stable, and it's much less of an issue. And again, I mean, my buttons still get pushed, but they don't get pushed very often or nearly as easily as they would have in the past. So I hope that answers your question. Somewhere in all of that is the answer to your question. Okay, what are your thoughts on medjool dates? And also, what are your thoughts on wild raw honey? So, dates are an interesting subject because dates are one of the few fruits. First of all, many of you already know this. Some of you may not realize this. People often ask if we grow dates when they arrive at Tanglewood. We're in the tropics. Dates grow on palm trees, but dates grow on desert palms. Okay, where I live, we get a lot of rain every year. We have a rainy season where it rains every day. And the palms that we grow, there's hundreds of varieties of palms, if not more. I think there's something like 40 or 50 different types of coconut palms that all produce coconuts. And most other palm trees produce some kind of a fruit or a nut. Date palms produce dates. Date palms I think there might be one or two varieties, I don't really see them very often, that can grow in wet tropics. But date palms are generally desert trees. So look at where dates grow. They grow in Saudi Arabia, and throughout the Middle East, in Israel and Lebanon, and all these countries where there's very little rain, right? These are mostly deserts, these countries. They grow in California, in Eastern California, which is all desert. They grow in Arizona. They grow in Nevada. They grow in places that are deserts, okay, almost exclusively. So medjools, most dates, not just medjools, are allowed to remain on the tree. They don't pick them when they're ripe. They let them ripen on the tree, and then instead of picking them, and they don't fall off the tree like some fruits do, not all fruits do, but some do. Oranges don't fall off the tree, you have to pick them when they're ripe. But dates don't fall off the tree either. And what they do is they will let them sit there and dry out in the desert heat and lack of humidity. They just become more and more dry. They do that on purpose. Why? Because people want something that's very sweet. We have a YouTube comment. I'm going to come back to you as soon as I'm done here. So hang on, hold tight. I'll be back to you in a few minutes. People want something very sweet. Now, if you're not familiar with the glycemic load chart, glycemic index, which everybody talks about, has actually very little impact on blood sugar. It's not related to blood sugar. It's just about how quickly a substance makes its carbohydrates available. Glycemic load takes the glycemic index and multiplies it by the amount of sugar in the food, which theoretically should give us a much better prediction of impact on blood sugar. So the way the glycemic load chart works is 0 to 9 is low glycemic load. 10 to 19 is moderate, 20 and above is high. Most fresh fruits, almost all the fresh fruits you can think of, are low glycemic load, and most of them are 5 or below. Pineapples and mangoes are both in the 8 to 9 range. Bananas and other very sweet fruits, the fruits that tend to be more dry, like durian, jackfruit, members of the sapote family, members of the custard apple family, like cherimoyas. All these fruits are going to be moderate glycemic loads, 13, 14, 15 in that range typically. Okay, Canistel, egg fruit is probably higher than that. It's super, super sweet. Okay, but dates, remember 20 and above is high. Dates are going to be in the 40 to 45 range usually. Okay, why? Because they're so dry. And when they're dry, the sugar is much more, you take the water out, right? If they were mostly water, like most fruits. If you've never seen a fresh date before it's been allowed to dry, they're not brown and they're not wrinkled. They're yellow, orange, red. They're smooth. They look like small plums, basically. Okay, not super juicy, but not dry like dates are, not like the way we're used to eating them. Okay, and so they have very high glycemic load. Because of that, I think you want to be very cautious about eating dates. Okay, I mean, if you go to a place like Saudi Arabia, in Israel, most of the families have only been there for 2 or 3 generations. Okay, the Jews, at least, that make up the bulk of the population. If you go to Saudi Arabia, where you have families that have been there for hundreds of generations, perhaps, they'll tell you, oh no, you only eat 3, 4 or 5 dates at a time. When I went raw, coming up on 33 years ago, when I had a hankering for something I didn't want to eat, I'd go buy a bag of cashews, which I thought were raw, now I know aren't, and I'd buy a bag of medjool, and I'd sit in the car and I'd shove handfuls of them into my mouth, alternating one to the other. I mean, I got stoned eating that stuff, right? I mean, super high glycemic load. All the fat means it slows down your body's ability to remove the excess sugar from the bloodstream. So you have this longer effect. Not a good idea. I mean, this, not healthy at all. I didn't know any better, but that's what I was doing then. So I would say today you want to be very cautious about how many dates you eat. Honey, unfortunately, is not ideal for us. It's a pretty simple carbohydrate, which means it also has a significant impact on blood sugar. People ask me all the time, what do you use to sweeten your food? And I'll say, what food do you mean? I mean, I don't need to sweeten my fruit. I eat mostly fruit most of the time. It's sweet enough as it is. I don't sweeten it with anything. Okay. So it's very rare that I'm creating something that I feel I need to make sweeter than it already is. All right. So I'm not a big fan of either of those things. There's other things about honey. Honey is made by bees. It's their food when there's no food available for them, right? They're typically looking for nectar from flowers, and they make honey so that they have food when there's no nectar available. They're storing it for themselves. I don't particularly want to be involved in consuming any animal products because it negatively impacts bees. Many bees are kept captive, of course, and they're fed sugar water, and their actual food is taken away from them. No, thank you. I don't want to be involved in that. Okay, so for various reasons, I'm not a big fan of honey. All right, YouTube. We have our first YouTube live comment ever on this new channel, which is a few weeks old now. Fresh dates are actually starchy and crisp like an apple. Dates start drying when the starch breaks down. They turn soft and sweet. So glad you're back on YouTube. Let's grow back this YouTube channel. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate all of that information. I've had plenty of fresh dates. They're not super starchy. I mean, if they're picked before they're ripe, they're starchy. Okay, when they're ripe, they taste, it's hard to describe. I mean, not starchy to me, but not super sweet like a date, right? Because again, it's not because the starch hasn't converted. If the starch hasn't been converted to sugar yet, then they're not ripe. Okay, when they're ripe, they should still be sweet, but they're not super sweet because they still have a fair amount of water. I mean, I'm guessing, I don't know. I would guess a date when it's fully ripe on the tree is probably going to be somewhere between 75 and 80% water, something like that. Whereas the dry date, the way it's sold, is typically going to be 20 to 25% water. And so the sugar is much more concentrated. Okay, and that's why we have that overwhelmingly sweet flavor. All right, I see we still have about 7 minutes, so I'll take more questions if I have them. Again, thank you so much. If you want to help spread the word about the YouTube channel, I'd appreciate that. I appreciate all of you. If you're listening on Instagram, but you use YouTube as well, you might want to go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That would help, right? Helps get more notice and get the videos out there. As I said before, so far, there hasn't been any long form content except today's live and last week's live. But I will start recording more long form content when I have more time. I've been super busy. I'm probably going to be doing more of those videos when we're closed. Maybe I can start doing some recording of videos when we're open and put those up as we used to do. I mean, I won't be doing a lot of editing of them. They may just be long form, content. We'll see, but there will be more coming. That's for sure. We have another question here, comment. Please speak on seeded grape fast. Okay. I'm chuckling because, I got schooled last week on Facebook by someone. When I responded, she then blocked me, and, her comments all disappeared. I don't understand people sometimes. Can we not have an intelligent discussion? She's telling me, you don't know what you're talking about. There's lots of different kinds of fasts. You can do a meat fast. Now, technically, water fast actually technically means that you're not consuming water, right? You're fasting from whatever you're mentioning. So meat fast would be what someone might do for Lent, where they're not eating any meat for Lent. That would be called a meat fast, could be called a meat fast. Of course, when people talk about fasting, what the term has come to, because English is an evolving language, but what the term fast means is that we're not consuming calories or nutrients, right? No nutriment, no calories or nutrients. So I don't think of consuming only one fruit as a fast, but some people call it that, right? It's commonly called in the raw vegan world a grape island, or people do a watermelon island, whatever it might be. I don't think this is a particularly good idea. Okay, I don't know of any reason. I've seen no science. There's no logic that I've heard of to support the idea that consuming only one thing for an extended period of time would benefit you in any particular way. How would it? Why would that help you? Okay, the goal is, when I process the meal now, let's say as soon as we're done, I'm going to go eat, right? So when I eat, whatever that's going to be, 2 hours or so, when I have my next meal, I'm going to eat one thing. It will probably be Valencia oranges. I've got a bunch of beautiful oranges sitting up there on the table. I'll probably have that for my next meal. And when I do that, my body will focus on digesting oranges. It will make the perfect environment to digest the oranges. Over the next hour or two, most of the nutrients will be absorbed into the system. It will take another 8 hours or so, usually 8 to 12 hours in a well-functioning system, for whatever's left over, the fiber, which we don't break down, whatever the body doesn't need, to pass out of the system as stool. Should be 8 to 12 hours from one end to the other. Okay. But much of the benefit is obtained in those first 2 or 3 hours after eating something. When I have my next meal, it makes no difference what I ate last time. As long as there's enough time between them, it won't affect what my body is doing now. The only outcome that I think you can guarantee if you stick with one thing for a long enough period of time is that you're going to wind up with nutrient imbalances and possibly deficiencies. Years ago, someone who still promotes this idea said to me many years ago, 15, 20 years ago, "What do you think of this?" I said, "It's not a good idea. I wouldn't recommend doing it. It's one thing if you want to eat only grapes for a few days or even a week, that's probably okay. But going beyond that, why would you do that? Okay. There is no one food that's nutritionally replete, that has everything we need. And so if we're limiting ourselves to one food, we're not going to be getting everything we need. This woman asked me what I thought. I told her. She did it anyway. She wound up in the hospital and still promotes it. Okay, that seems irresponsible to me. I don't understand the logic. I've seen no benefit from this. Now, obviously, if someone is having trouble sticking to an optimal diet, and for some reason they think, well, I can better stick with one thing, okay, for a short period of time. But to me, it's no easier. I can have, as I said, I'll have oranges in a couple hours, and when I eat later this evening, it'll be a salad, probably a simple salad: lettuce, tomatoes, cucumbers, avocado. I'm not better. I wouldn't be better off eating just the same fruit over and over and over and over again. I would eventually wind up with some imbalance in nutrients. And I've seen this. I haven't seen anyone else have to go to the hospital because of it, but I've seen other people wind up with imbalances they then had to fix. Why would you do that? I don't understand that. I wouldn't do only watermelon for a length of time. Now, grapes have a higher glycemic load than most of the other fresh fruits. It definitely, they're lower in water content. It wouldn't be my choice. If I was going to do anything mono, which I would only do for a few days at a time at the most, it would probably be melons or papayas or something that's high in water content. I wouldn't choose something that has much less water. So it wouldn't be my choice. Okay. But I hope that helps. You are very, very welcome. All right. I'm going to come back here. I still have, it looks like just a couple minutes. I have a call after this, so I will have to go shortly. What's the name of the channel? It's a great question. Thank you. The name of the new channel, you should find it if you search my name, but it's Loren Lockman. I think it's _official. Loren Lockman _official. Okay. That's the new one. Thank you for asking. Didn't even occur to me to mention that. I just assumed you would Google me and find it that way. But all right, let's see. What's this? Okay, good. Janelle. All right, so I've got a question here. Limited says, hi, I prefer a whole foods plant-based diet. I've tried the fruits and green salads a lot of times, but I always lose interest long-term. Will you ever recommend optimal whole foods diet? No. There isn't a lot of time to get into this, but we'll get into it another time. I mean, here's the thing. I recommend that you do whatever you're willing to do that's best for you. Now, I don't know very many people who eat the way that I do that get bored of it. I think what happens is taste buds change and we wind up realizing, oh, you know what? Nothing tastes better than this. There's nothing my body wants more than this. Why would I do anything else? Okay, anything else is going to be far inferior. And here's the problem. Okay, when we cook food, we destroy nutrients. Nutrients are heat sensitive. Vitamin C, for instance, is 100% lost when you cook anything that contains vitamin C. 100%. In fact, it's almost 100% lost by juicing or blending something because it's so highly unstable. Okay, so I not only don't recommend eating cooked foods, I don't recommend drinking juices and smoothies. And it's not that you can never drink juices and smoothies, but for me, they play a tiny, tiny role in my diet because they're definitely not optimal. And I want to stick to what's optimal as much as I can. Okay. But cooking foods, in addition to destroying nutrients, we're also creating toxic compounds. So when you eat cooked food, your body actually responds or reacts to that just as if you've been poisoned. Okay. There's an immune response, just as if you've been poisoned, only because you have been poisoned. Okay. Cooked foods are actually toxic to us. They contain, how toxic they are depends on what you're cooking, what the temperature is, what the specific conditions are. But all bread, for instance, contains a fairly high amount of acrylamide, which is a carcinogenic compound. It's a compound that causes cancer. Okay, is it health food? No, definitely not. It's not the staff of life. Maybe it would be better called the staff of death. I mean, it will contribute to causing cancer. So for me, the question, of course, again, you have to decide for yourself. I'm not telling you it's right or wrong. I mean, I honestly, I believe that we live many times. I believe we've lived many lifetimes and that we need to experience everything there is to experience in human form. Now, that includes at some point dying of a horrific disease. And if you want this lifetime to be that time, eating cooked food might be a good way to get there. Okay. But I'm clear it's definitely not nearly as healthy as eating the raw foods that belong in the body. And so I keep my diet raw for that reason. I won't be recommending cooked foods. Now, obviously, if you're going to eat cooked foods, some things are better than others. Everything's relative. Some things are much healthier than others. You want to eat as much as possible whole foods, as you said. Now, you could do some whole grains. We're not meant to be eating wheat. We're not really grain eaters at all, but there are some that are better than others. It's one thing to eat brown rice and steamed vegetables. That's not so bad, but it's still far inferior to a raw vegan diet, properly constituted raw vegan diet. That's the very best we can do. Okay. Got that one. Thank you. Can't find the one you're live on. Can't find the one I'm live on. Okay. Well, let's see. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I'm pretty confident it's Loren Lockman _official. Okay. And you should find it. You might find the other channel first because it's a lot bigger, but it should still show up here. Nope, that's weird. I don't know what I did, but I just lost my comments. I don't know where on Instagram. I'm so sorry. I can no longer see anything except myself. I don't know what happened. So I'm not going to be. I'm pretty much out of time. Oh, I'm actually over time. So I'm gonna sign off. It's been great to spend this time with you. I hope this has been helpful to you. Thank you so much for joining me here on YouTube, and I appreciate you joining me on Instagram too. But I would love to see more people joining here on YouTube, and I will look forward to seeing you at the same time next week. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye. That one's easy. Oh, this is really weird here. I'm not sure where we are now. How to stop this? I don't see anything I normally see. I don't know what I did. And you there?